Today is day 304 of the October 7th war and the Hamas hostage crisis. Today is Ariel Bibat's 5th birthday. I'd like to wish Ariel a happy birthday, but Ariel, together with his baby brother Kfir and their parents, are still hostages in Gaza. They were brutally abducted by Hamas death squads during the October 7th massacre a few months ago. Just not long ago, Ariel's little brother Kfir had his first birthday in Hamas captivity. That poor baby has been a hostage for longer than he was ever free. The family has now spent 10 months in Hamas terror dungeons. Kfir and Ariel's grandfather and grandmother were murdered by Hamas. Iran's Gazan proxy army that declared war on the people of Israel on October 7th are, over 300 days later, still holding 110 hostages. This includes young men and women, a young family, a young child, and even that little baby Kfir. Because kidnapping, stealing kids, is part of Iran's seven-front war to destroy the Jewish state. Hamas abducted little children, and then Iran's other proxy armies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and more, joined Iran's regional war in solidarity. This isn't a fight over politics and power. The people of Israel are fighting for their lives and for the lives of their babies in the face of Iran's criminal caliphate and its proxy armies. Israel is expecting an imminent, multi-front attack from Iran. The military, firefighters, medics are all in high gear for conventional threats like missiles, while emergency response teams are prepping to stop any terrorist infiltrations. Iran says it will punish Israel, and its foreign ministry actually used those words, as if Israel were a naughty child. And this revenge attack could be bigger than the unprecedented attack in April, with over 300 missiles and drones. More rockets, more targets, more fronts, more days. Iran's attack could begin at any moment. Iran reportedly plans to drag out its attack so as to wear out Israel and try to kill more people. Why? Because Israel's removing the ability of Iran and its proxy armies to murder the people of Israel. Think about how twisted Iran is. Iran wants people in Israel to die, and for Israel to do nothing. Iran even says that innocent civilians in Israel are a target. That was Iran's playbook in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Yemen. Israel will not be the next. Like any other country, Israel rejects Tehran's temper tantrum and Iran's murderous logic. Israel is fighting back, and we are protecting our people. Iran wants to surround Israel with a ring of fire and watch it burn. It can't stand that Israel has been extinguishing its flames, cutting its proxy armies down to size. Flames like Mohammed Deif, the terror mastermind in Gaza, Fuad Shakar, the chief of Hezbollah's terror army in Lebanon, and according to foreign reports, Ismail Haniyeh, the diabolical leader of Hamas, who planned and financed for years the murder of Jews in Israel and around the world. Iran should quit while it's behind. Iran wants to see Israeli blood. Iran can't contain itself. The world must contain Iran. The world is urging Iran to stop the violence. The G7 urged de-escalation. Jordan's foreign minister made a rare visit to Tehran and asked Iran to stop its violent escalation in favor of peace, security, and stability. That's what Israel wants too. But if Iran continues, Israel will do what it must to protect our people, including all the residents of Israel, people of all backgrounds and religions that live in Israel freely in a thriving democracy. In fact, the existence of Israel as a thriving democracy, similar to countries in the West, is one of the reasons Iran wants to destroy Israel, because they see Israel standing for values which they reject, such as freedom, liberty, and the right to live according to one's beliefs and values. Iran, which is a cruel dictatorship, sees this as a threat, just as cruel dictators have fought the West in the past. In April, when Iran launched 350 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones to murder Israeli families, many of Israel's neighbors, including Jordan, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and likely Saudi Arabia, joined the United States, UK, and France in blunting Iran's aerial attack. Why did they join this alliance? Because Iran is a threat to the whole region. They understand that Iran is threatening their countries as well. The American military, including warships and fighter aircraft, are also moving into the region, as they did in April. Iran desperately wants war. Israel wants something very simple: to live in peace within our borders. However, if Iran cannot contain its desire for blood, then Israel and countries who share a vision of peace will contain it and defend against Iran's murderous threats. A few words to our viewers. For all of those asking what you can do to help, there are links to a JGive campaign across social media. These donations provide the support that we need to keep getting out the word. I'd also like to ask that you sign up for our email list. We promise we won't bother you with junk mail. This will allow us to get you our message directly and occasionally share special content. Let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
First question today comes from Laura on Instagram, who asks, we've heard talk of preemptive strikes of Israel striking Iran. Is this likely to happen, and what would it mean?
Laura, thank you for your question. This can't be a preemptive strike for one simple reason. Iran preemptively struck Israel. Let's not forget that just a month and a half ago, rockets, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, more missiles that have probably ever been launched at any other state, country in world history, were launched at Israel, a non-belligerent actor, while people were sitting in their homes, sheltering. Iran started this. Therefore, any response can no longer be preemptive. However, given what I assume that you're asking, would Israel keep all options on the table? There's no question. Israel is here, while we're not looking for this war, to defend the people of Israel and everyone living here. Whatever military options Israel needs in order to do that, it will move forward in doing. As we've seen in recent days, Israel managed to strike, like threading a needle, strike some of the greatest and most awful terror minds that exist in the world today. Terror leaders of Hezbollah, which is an internationally declared terror organization, Hamas, which is a terror organization according to the United States, and other diabolical leaders. Israel would take the steps that we need while trying to avoid civilian casualties of removing those who are out to destroy our country.
Our next question comes from Julia on YouTube, who asks, Iran said they don't want a, quote, regional escalation. Didn't Israel expect that an assassination in Tehran would force Iran to respond? Isn't there a better way out of this cycle of violence?
I think that we can actually take a step back from this and just see how clearly Iran is lying. You don't need me in order to do it. Just look what Iran has been doing in recent years in places like Syria and in Lebanon, where they have already engaged in a regional escalation. Why are there Houthis fighting all the way from Yemen? Because Iran went into Yemenite territory and created terror cells. Iran has been working on regional escalation for the last 20 years. In fact, that's everything they're about, is creating alliances within any country in the region that is willing to join their demonic regime. Let's look at Iran's friends. Who are Iran's friends? They're not friends with the West. They're friends with Russia, China, and North Korea. These are the people that they play with in the playground. Iran is all about creating an evil alliance, an axis of evil that is against Israel, any other democratic-loving country, and yes, from whichever country you are watching from. In the West, Iran burns Israeli flags at the same time they burn your flags, because Iran is interested in creating a territorial army that is out to fight anyone that stands for freedom. We just may be the first ones on the line, but their goals, as they've clearly stated, are really to take over the Western world and destroy freedom wherever it exists.
The next question comes from Instagram Live from user Awawal, who asks, are Jewish communities globally also preparing for some kind of an attack targeting them?
It's an excellent question, and as we know, Iran has no qualms whatsoever of attacking innocent civilians, whether they are in Israel or whether they are overseas. We know that Hezbollah, which is the proxy of Iran, blew up a Jewish center. That's like a YMCA in Buenos Aires, killing over 40 innocent people who are going about their daily lives. We must not underestimate Iran's desire and, God forbid, their ability to strike innocents. These are not brave, courageous fighters that fight in the open air. These are terrorists who work to undermine and attack innocent civilians. There are many civilian and Jewish organizations and institutions around the world that are aware of this. Governments that we can read on the news have put out alerts and are engaging, are employing their security agencies to protect the Jewish communities, but everyone has to be aware of what's happening around them. This is a time when Iran is specifically saying, and Hezbollah, that they will target Jews in your countries, that you literally take to the streets and stand up for every Jewish member of your society and say, these are people, these are citizens of America, of England, of France, of wherever they are. We stand together with the Jewish community and with Israel against the Iranian terror regime. As we know from the Holocaust, the first people they come for are the Jews. They're only the first people on the line. And then they come for more and more and more people. This is the time to make your voices heard.
Our next question, which will need to repeat back to the audience because they can't hear me, is from Ruhama Efron, who asks, is there or are you expecting a rush on the airport?
So Ruhama asks a question, are we expecting a rush on the airport in Israel? Well, I can tell you, Ruhama, it's a great question, but as we saw on October 7th, there was a rush to the airport. However, it was a rush for people flying into Israel. From the October 7th attacks, Israelis returned from all over the world to stand up and fight for our country. You can always have some Israelis who will leave like in any other country, but I don't know if in history there's ever been a country where more people have returned during war than those that returned to Israel over October 7th. We really, at the end of the day as Israelis have nowhere to run. There is no other country in the world. Israel was founded out of the ashes of the Holocaust. Israel is the only home for a Jewish person in the world that is a Jewish state, and it is the size of New Jersey. We are 1/500th of the size of the Middle East. So therefore, Israelis are coming home, and Israelis who are living here have one goal in mind, to protect our home, protect our families, protect the children, protect our relatives, and enable this Jewish state, the only one in the world, to survive and thrive. And we know a thriving Israel brings benefits to the rest of the world in terms of medicine, in terms of research. Israel wants to help the world, and therefore everyone around the world should be interested in Israel's survival.
Our next question comes from Instagram Live from user Erevto, who asks, which countries participate in the coalition to defend Israel?
Thank you, Erevto, for your question. Many of Israel's neighbors, last time it included Jordan, it included the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, most likely Saudi Arabia, of course, the United States and England and France. A coalition is being formed of countries, both because they see Iran as an enemy that simply wants to take over the rest of the Middle East, or they value Israel and the stand that Israel makes on democracy, like our friends in the West. The importance is that Israel is not alone. Maybe Iran thought when they were shooting 350 rockets at Israel that we would be alone, but no, the world showed its true colors by standing by Israel and doing whatever they could to minimize these attacks, shooting down drones and missiles out of the sky. Because while the United Nations might make statements vilifying Israel, we know that in the heart of hearts there are many good countries throughout the world that see Israel as a thriving democracy and stand by Israel in the hour that we need them. And we believe that they're going to do so again.
The next question from Instagram Live user Is85 asks, given the current situation, will there ever be a hostage deal?
You know, it's an excellent question, and this is what everybody in Israel has, two or three opinions, because everyone is horribly torn in Israel. On one hand, everybody's heart breaks for these hostages. As I mentioned, today is the 5th birthday of Ariel Bibas, who's been in captivity for 10 months, and his brother Kfir, who's been in captivity longer than he's been in freedom. Our hearts go out to the hostages, and all of us want to bring them home. However, we know, and it was said at the very beginning by the military establishment in Israel, Hamas, they're bad guys. They're not going to make a deal out of the goodness of their hearts. They're not going to wake up one morning and come peacefully to Israel and return the hostages, even if we wished that they would, and they could. This entire conflict in Gaza could have ended at any moment in time. All Gaza has to do is for Hamas to put down their weapons and return our hostages, and it's over in one day. We believe that Hamas will only come to a deal if they have no choice. There are debates what it means if they have no choice, but by applying military pressure on Hamas and pushing them into the corner where they have no choice, it may actually be the best chance for us getting our hostages home. What I can tell you is Israel will never stop dealing for the hostages. We will do everything we can until every one of those people comes home.
And our last question for today comes from Talia on YouTube, who asks, there is an infographic circling around social media explaining that Israelis should not post on social media or communicate online where attacks are happening because it can help the enemy. Is this true? And should we still post to show the international community what is really occurring here, or could this put Israelis' safety in jeopardy?
We should always be active, and there are ways to post without declaring exactly where an attack is taking place. It's, I think, incumbent on every single person to forward and take a very active stance on social media to get the messages out. We know that while there are probably very few terrorists hiding out in America, and the amount of people who protested in the universities are not the majority, they are very, very loud. And it's incumbent upon every person to take a clear stance and allow the truth that lies in Israel, the truth that exists in Israel, that comes forth, to be seen and heard by the rest of the world. Having said all of that, one has to be very careful not to give away the logistics and the locations of where attacks happen in Israel, because that could provide some type of service for the enemy. So we need to be careful. We need to use some caution. Don't state exactly where something is taking place until you see that it's being cleared by the army and reported by the rest of the media. I want to thank all of you for joining us. We are here every day at 3 p.m. Israel time and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can follow us on all of your social networks, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and TikTok. And we hope that you will continue to join us. Come with more questions tomorrow, and we're all praying and standing by a safe and secure Israel.